This is the Brandon Smith Show. I am your host, Brandon Smith, and the entire purpose of this show is one singular thing, and that is to help you eliminate dysfunction and make your life that much better. And so our topic today is we're going to talk about navigating your career at different stages and times of your career. And we're going to take a particular angle on it and look at all the factors that are impacting careers today and all the change around us, because I think context matters so much when we're taking on this topic. And so to help us with this, I have an awesome guest today. Paulette, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
So Paulette Corbin is joining us today, and Paulette, you've got a couple really cool titles, so I want to share both of them. So she's not only the founder of Corbin Executive Coaching, but she's also the executive director at ChapterTwo.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about ChapterTwo.
So ChapterTwo was founded about 6 years ago by Jim Dupree, and it was to really help CEOs kind of navigate into their next step, not retirement. So think unretirement, but not at the CEO level or the speed and pace. So it's more about their passion, what was relevant to them. We've since found that there's a real need for this at different levels. Not only rising executives, but also people who went back to get their MBAs. And how do I navigate this crazy environment right now?
I love that, because it's a nice microcosm of the bigger topic that we're taking on today, which is, there is not this traditional work for a company for 38 years, get a gold watch or whatever happens to be, and go off and retire in Florida. That doesn't necessarily, that's not
the way it is right now.
That's not the model anymore. Mm-mm. So before we jump into our topic, I love your story. So I would love to hear you share that story again for our listeners. Tell us a little bit about what's been your career path up to this point.
Yes.
Because I think it also, in its own way, models this change.
It does. You're right, Brandon, even though I didn't know I was doing it at the time. So I had a wonderful career with Delta Airlines. I started as a frontline employee and rose to senior vice president. Now, the thing that's so awesome about that is I changed jobs every 2.5 years within the company.
Really?
So even though I was there for 30 years, it was a very different experience each time I changed jobs, because there were different cultures within the company. So flight attendant is freewheeling, make your decisions on the fly. And reservations is, okay, we are going to time you for how long it takes you to go to the bathroom. When I got into that culture, I was like, oh, no. We're going to make some changes there. To airport customer service over 9/11.
Wow.
And then the Olympics out in Salt Lake City. And then back and helping the company get through bankruptcy.
Wow.
So I left right after we emerged. Then I had to figure out what I wanted to do next.
And so then what happened?
Then I thought, well, I don't want to go to the airlines because my heart's with Delta. So what else do I do? Well, I found out that everybody defines you by your resume. Not what you want to do, but by your resume. Yeah. So everybody looked at me as an airline geek, even though I'd done all these fabulous things, including a startup. So they said, well, you're an airline person. I said, no, I have a lot more skills than that, but they couldn't see beyond that, which is what happens with a lot of people today.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate. I networked. I got into consulting because I wanted to learn more about consulting. I wanted to learn more about other businesses and their business models compared to the airlines. Did that for 7 years, and then pulled the chain that said, now I want to do my passion, which is coaching. So I became an executive coach. My first year in coaching, I found that people were struggling with their careers. So that's how ChapterTwo came about.
Cool.
So
and I could see, even when you said coaching, I could just see a little twinkle in your eye when you said it.
Oh yeah, I love helping people. It's been a theme throughout my career.
So let's talk about the workplace today.
Yes.
Some of the changes that you're seeing in both early career, mid-career, latter season of our career. What do you see some of the big meta trends?
Yeah. Well, the 20, 30-year career in one company like I experienced is gone. That's totally gone now.
Is that a bad thing or a good thing, or is it just is what it is?
It is what it is. I think companies have to compete globally now. That's very different. You've got technology that's entering the workspace, which is taking some jobs away. You've got companies that are saying, well, I want the latest and greatest talent to bring me this piece of it, rather than growing people up through an organization. Because when you think about it, most companies and their organizations are built on the industrial age model, so manufacturing. Now we're in this knowledge age, in this service age. So companies are having to adapt to be the best they can be within this, and as well as being profitable. If you're not profitable, you don't have a business, right?
Sure.
So the model is really changing to less permanent jobs, more consulting, freelancing, bring in the top person, contract them for a couple of years, and then let them go and get the next person who has the latest and greatest information. So you're seeing this fragmentation in the workforce. So instead of a company bringing you up now, it's important for each individual to think about and grab hold of developing their own career strategy.
That seems both an exciting and kind of a daunting prospect.
It is. It is.
At the same time.
It is. It is. Because how do you figure all this out, right? How do you figure out what you like? Because, I mean, I came out of college with a totally different degree than what I did, right?
Yeah, so Paulette,
Yes.
how do you figure all this out?
There are 5 tips I have for your viewers today.
5 things. Awesome.
5 tips. So,
Fantastic.
And this is about being proactive, right?
Yeah.
So this whole idea, if you think about this whole idea of the 3-stage life, so you educate yourself.
3-stage life.
3-stage life.
Okay.
Education, work to build your financial and your skills, your financial profile and your skills expertise, and then retirement. That's gone away. Because if you look now, people in their 70s are still working.
Yeah.
Now, they're not doing what they were doing in their 40s, but they're still working. So there's this long period where we're going to be working longer, and we have to think differently about the stages in our life. It's not just 3 anymore.
You know what? And what's interesting about retirement, people forget this is a new concept.
Yeah.
This is, if you go back centuries, people didn't retire.
No.
You didn't retire.
No.
You found a way to constantly be doing something and contributing, largely because you had to.
That's right.
Or you might be living with your extended family, and you had other responsibilities that you did. But people didn't. This is a fairly recent idea that we've been testing.
You're absolutely
and
right.
it's evolving.
It is evolving, and we're living longer and we're healthier longer. Now, you couple that with the fact that most learning is only good for about 5 years now. That wasn't true when I was growing up. You know, you went to school and you were learned, right? Now it's 5 years. So this retooling, this constant retooling, is going to be a part of the future. So the idea of taking sabbaticals, which they do a lot in Europe, you see this a lot, going away, retooling yourself, and then coming back and trying something new. That's a piece of this. You look at jobs, 4.5 years on average, you know, and people working longer. So now how do you put your strategies together so that you're driving your career path instead of somebody else driving it? Whether it's a merger, acquisition.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to wake up one day and find out, well, gosh, the job that I had planned on for the next 20 years is now gone. What do I do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I could actually jump in and ask questions here, but I'm not going to do that yet.
Okay.
You mentioned 5 tips.
Yes.
What's our first one?
The very first tip is getting very clear, objectively, not through your family, objective feedback on what you do well, what's stimulating to you, and really what you want to do. So that's the first tip.
So get some feedback on what you're good at, what you like doing, and what really kind of you're passionate about.
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
And how do you get that? When people say, okay, I want that objective feedback, how do I find it?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is in one of the other points, and that is in networking. So if I sit down with you and I say, Brandon, what's it like to do this show? Tell me what a day in the life is in your life. Right now I'm learning more about what you're doing, pieces of it that I can explore, and pieces that may fit with me or may not fit with me. So I had a client that said, I think I want to be executive director of a nonprofit. So she had come from a whole different industry. So I said, okay, I'm going to set you up to have coffee with an executive director of a nonprofit. And I want you to interview this individual for what a day in the life is. And so she came back after that and she said, Okay, I don't want to do that.
They don't want to do that. That's not good.
So your networking is more than just getting to know people in the environment. It's really getting to understand what the components of a job are, not just what I imagine them to be. So that's how you should be using your networking.
So it sounds like we hit 2 points.
2 points.
So the first one is gather that information about yourself.
Yes.
And so it sounds like you've got to be really honest about yourself, but also try and gather that objective feedback,
Yes.
what you're good at, what you're interested in, passionate about. And then networking. Use networks to explore, discover, and learn.
Yes, that's
Not
exactly
just get
right.
jobs, but
Right.
learn more about what's out there and what's that like. What's I love that idea. Just what's the day in the life of a ... look
Yes.
like?
Yes.
Okay. What else? What are other good tips for us?
Yeah, some other good tips include this one's really important. Know what you don't like. Get very clear on that. So, for example, I had a friend who wanted to retire. He had been all, crazy, lots of people around him all the time, busy, buzz. And he said, I'm going to retire. I'm going to go to the mountains. I want to be a consultant, and I don't want to talk to anybody. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work for very long, but that's your choice. He did, and within 6 months, he was like, yeah, this isn't working for me. He needed that back and forth. He needed that stimulation, and didn't realize he needed it because he was just tired. He was coming off of, 60, 80-hour week job. And so we thought, I just want to get away and be quiet. And after 6 months, it didn't work anymore. So you need to get real clear on what is it? What kind of environment do you thrive in? What stimulates you in that environment? And if you're more of an introvert and you get your energy from reading or from taking long walks in the wood, then working alone in the home office is going to work for you.
Yes, it's almost like this distinction, particularly for that client, between what do you want versus what do you need.
Exactly.
So he wanted, and rightfully so, a break.
Well said.
But
well
what
said.
he really needs long term is he needs some people energy.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So that is really important to know. Do you want, and like we were talking earlier, do you want to commute? I was talking to a friend the other day who's thinking of a job down in Atlanta. She lives up in Alpharetta here. And I said, are you really going to do that commute every day?
Yeah, that's rough.
Do you really want to do that? Is that something is that job so important that you're willing to put up with 4 hours on the road every day?
Yeah.
She hadn't even thought about that.
I had a coworker of mine, this was years ago, and we worked, one of the earlier in my career, I worked for a corporation, large financial services company, and we were down by the perimeter.
Yes.
And she commuted from Chattanooga every day.
Oh my gosh.
Chattanooga every single day.
Oh my gosh.
Drove in her car. It was almost exactly 2 hours. Come in and then would drive back. Mm-hmm. And she would come in right around 10 a.m. so she could avoid some traffic, and then she would stay till like 6 or 7 and then go home.
Oh my gosh.
And that was how she operated. I can't imagine that.
No. Well, I think it was different 20 years ago.
It was. In fact, now today it'd probably be 3 hours.
Absolutely. And I don't think people are willing. Life is so fast right now. I don't think people are willing to spend that much time in aggravation traffic, which most people spend.
Unless they had some fantastic podcasts to listen to.
Well, that's true.
And I don't know where you'd get one of those. Okay, so going back, we've hit a couple key points. We've talked about understanding yourself, strengths, passions, interests. We talked about networking, so you can learn about kind of what's a day in a life like. And then we also talked about kind of knowing what you don't like.
Yes.
Which also kind of ties to the first. We get this theme of self-awareness.
Yes,
in
very
this.
much so.
I want to then hit number 4 after the break.
That sounds good.
Okay, so stay tuned. We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back and we'll say, okay, what's number 4 and number 5?
Okay.
Because I'm really curious on how we can use these to really equip us for the years and decades to come. Okay, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Job plus the right culture plus the right boss equals workplace happiness. The number one reason people leave jobs is problems with their boss. A horrible boss can make us dread every Monday, but an amazing boss can make us so excited to work that we'd go in on weekends. Finding your perfect boss is not only possible, it's one of the most impactful steps you can take in crafting your perfect career. Visit theworkplacetherapist.com and click on guides to learn how to find and get your perfect boss, whether that means making the decision to move on or turning your current boss into the perfect leader you want them to be. Our bosses have so much influence over our work and our whole day. Working for the right boss alone can be a winning career strategy.
Welcome back to the Brandon Smith Show. This is Brandon Smith, and today I've got wonderful guest Paulette Corbin joining us today, and we're talking about navigating our career and navigating our career strategies, particularly in the modern workplace today, as things are changing so fast.
Yeah.
So Paulette, right before the break, we talked about those 3 key points of 5, and we've already hit understanding yourself, both knowing your strengths, what you're good at, getting that feedback, interests and passions. And then second, we talked about networking and using that to learn opportunities. And then third, we talked about understanding what you don't like. You know, what do you not like to do? You know, it's funny, on that third point, some of the most challenging coaching clients that I've worked with are the people that historically have been good at everything.
Yes.
Because they can't answer the question what they don't like.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know. They just had success at everything.
Yeah.
So everything came easy, and it's hard for them to say, I don't really like to do that.
Mm-hmm. And I'll bet they have a sense of curiosity too. So everything looks kind of interesting to them.
And it's really hard for them to focus. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we hit those 3. What's number 4?
So number 4 is to really sit down and sketch out your career. And I mean this, a career path.
So really sketch it out.
Sketch it out. And I want you to include financial. What do you need at each stage financially?
Okay.
How willing are you to move? Figure that in. Are you going to have a family? How much time do you want with that family? How much time for breaks and retooling, re-educating yourself, or building up your training and skills in a certain area? So that you understand when to pull the triggers at certain points in your life. Because remember, I said that 3-stage life isn't going to hold up anymore.
Yeah.
So when do you want to take breaks? You know, as a woman, do you want to be home for a few years? Okay.
Yeah.
Just put that in there, because this marketplace is going to allow more and more of that. They're not going to see it as not being committed. It's just going to be seen as another phase of your life and your career. So really sit down and map out what you want to do and at what stages of your life.
So I love that. So map it out, include financial, include location, include kind of family and personal life.
Right.
And then and I think people get all that one. The 4th one's really interesting. You've touched on it a couple times, the retooling.
Yes.
That one's interesting.
Yes.
And then tied to that, even kind of sabbaticals and rest. Because we need to be owning that and doing that. And I think while you're exactly right, I think it's a wonderful time to be working if you want to spend more time with family. Say you have an aging parent or you have a child and you need to step aside to do that. There's much more understanding for men and women around doing that.
Yes.
However, I see less understanding for people that want to take sabbatical vacations. 5 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to Europe. It's like, why do you get to do that? Yep. Or people that say, well, I'm going to take some time off to, retool and go to this class, and it's for 2 weeks. It's seen as rest when it's not. So how do we navigate that? And you might not have an answer to that, but that seems like a challenge for people today.
I think how you navigate that is, remember, jobs now, the average length of time in a position is 4.5 years. So every 3 to 4 years, you should be thinking about what's next and how do I get ready for that. So, for example, I came out of Delta searching for something, consulting. I was fortunate enough to get into North Highland Consulting, learn about consulting, and do a lot of things I'd never done before. But my ultimate goal was coaching. Yeah. I knew that going in. So what did I need between Delta and coaching? I needed to understand consulting. I needed to get certified in coaching. I needed to understand different business models, and I needed to grow my network in Atlanta. So I was very deliberate about how I was using that next stage. I'd never done that before in my career at Delta because I'd always been told where to go. But this was a turn for me in getting very clear on what my next stage was going to be and then what I needed to do to retool for that.
Wow. And you
Makes
did
sense? And I did it. It was great. It worked.
it. Yeah, absolutely. So when you were working at North Highland, was it easy or hard to say, oh, I'm going to take time off to go do this training class or get certified?
Oh, easy.
or-
Easy. In consulting, they want you to keep retooling. That's one area where they said, oh, yeah, go sign up for that, or we'll bring it in for you. There is a certain amount of respect for training and retooling that you don't necessarily find in an organization.
Yeah.
But I think that's changing. I do think that's changing. That's why people are, saying, okay, 4.5 years in a job, and then I need somebody who's even brighter and knows more about the next technology level or AI level.
It's interesting when I talk to the students at Emory at the business school, the ones who are in the evening MBA program and in the executive MBA program sometimes get mixed messages. So what will happen is their employer says, oh, that's great that you want to go back and get an MBA. That's great. That's fantastic. We applaud you, because they also recognize for those 2 years, 3 years, depending upon the program,
Yep.
you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to keep this
That's
steady
true.
paycheck and you're going to do this. But then when the student starts to say, well, they're weekend MBA, so they're taking Friday off to go to classes. Employer says, wait, oh, you have work. Like, there's things going on.
Mm-hmm.
We can't what are we going to do without you here? So it's interesting.
There is an interesting pull. And I think that's a negotiation process, right? Because what is the value to the company in that individual getting their EMBA? What are they bringing? What more are they going to be able to contribute once they attain this? And I think that's the conversation with the company. If the company doesn't see that as valuable, then you have to step back and say, why am I doing this? I'm doing this for my own career. So now how do I start thinking about retooling and perhaps even changing jobs?
Yeah, and which ends up happening
Yeah,
for a lot
a
of
lot.
those students. They
That's
will they leave.
That's right.
Absolutely happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got, I love that,
4.
sketching out your career path as number 4.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling with time we're going to come back to this. What's number 5?
Number 5 is social media.
Okay.
So your resume says where you've been successful, not necessarily what you want to do. LinkedIn, you can display and write about what you want to do
Okay.
and the value you could bring. So that's where you use your social media, whether it's blogging on LinkedIn, blogging on Facebook, having opinions on different ways that you could use your retooling skills for other companies and talking about what that might look like. That's how you get a social media presence. And most people go to LinkedIn now. They don't
Yeah.
look at resumes. They go to LinkedIn
Yeah. I
and
was
Facebook.
telling somebody the same thing yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. We're on the same.
Same thing, exactly. Well, that's really interesting. It goes back to your early theme of this is about being proactive and not reactive.
Exactly.
Not sitting back waiting to be found and then giving a resume. It's inserting your voice in the conversation.
That's right.
And the conversation's happening on more of social media and technology. So how do we use all those avenues, whether it's blogging, LinkedIn, Twitter, and other forms, to get our voice out there and talk about not only who we are and where we've been, but where we want to go.
Exactly.
Where we want to contribute.
Exactly. And that's really important.
And it kind of ties to personal branding in many ways. Like
Very much.
Own and manage your own brand.
That's exactly
So
right.
you don't get stuck, pigeonholed, where people say, they see you in the way that you don't want to be seen. Like your early experience when they said, well, you're an airline person. That's kind of
right.
what you do. And you say, yeah, but I'm more than that.
Yes, exactly. But you have to show people, Brandon, and you know this, you have to show people what value you could bring because they're not going to see it. So that's part of the proactiveness in the social media too, is to demonstrate or put ideas, plant seeds in other industries on things where they can see, oh, wow, it would be really awesome to get Brandon in here to take a look at this one, this and this. But you're going to have to paint that picture because organizations are not going to see it automatically.
So I have a final question before we get into our life hack.
Okay.
Okay, this is a fun question.
Okay, good.
If I put my magic crystal ball in front of you, okay, other than being invisible, my magic crystal ball, it kind of only shows kind of picture perfect of the world. Okay, where do you see the workplace going in the next 10, 20 years? And when we think about our careers, so for example, are we going to be salaried employees? Are we going to be more like all just contractors, more like gig economy? What do you see happening?
Great question. And I'm going to tell you my perspective
Please.
of what I see and what I have seen over my career. I think that companies are going to go more toward having a very small group of C-suite leaders. They will be permanent employees. I think they'll write their strategies for the next 3 years, 5 years. And then I think they'll figure out what kind of talent do we need to successfully deliver and develop those strategies. They will hire in. If they have to hire permanent, that will be the last decision. Otherwise, they'll try to bring it in through consultants, through freelancers, through groups that will come together, work together over this specific period of time, and then go away. And then the next set of strategies will come in. And of course, through the years, they'll pull levers and say, oh, okay, this happened because the marketplace is not that steady, right? You get surprises all the time. So, oh, this happened, we have to respond to this, so we need this kind of talent in. But it won't be a cradle to grave type existence anymore.
So really is this picture of some people will have full-time jobs with maybe kind of a certain number of years contracted out for, and other people will just be contractors.
That's right.
And then, which I think you can still use all 5 of your points. You know, that's the self-awareness about your strengths and passions, the networking. Of course, you'll have to have that. Understanding what you don't like, mapping out your career path, and then social media. You'll need all those things as a contractor.
That's right.
As a contractor myself, I think the challenge for me is in the 4th one, particularly in the area of retooling, because when I don't work, I don't get paid.
I know.
And so that's the really hard part. So I'm paying, I'm not getting paid, and I'm turning down opportunities to do that.
Exactly.
That's, I think, going to be a hard thing for people to navigate, but an important one, because I know that's something I'm hungry for all the time.
But if you plan it, if you work on planning it out, so getting that life plan out and say, okay, for this year, I'm going to retool, and I have to plan on not having a salary. Yeah. So that's the value of the strategic plan for your career. Because you're right. Otherwise, we're here, and I'm a contractor too, right? So I only work. When I work, I get paid. When I don't work, I don't get paid. So
well, fortunately, I get to have awesome people on the show like you that retool me.
Yeah.
So this is
I'm
getting retooled right now. It's fantastic. So, all right. Well, believe it or not, we're on to my final question.
Can't believe.
So I always ask every guest this question. What's a life hack for us on how we can eliminate dysfunction, either from our lives personally or professionally?
So my life hack is listening to understand. I think there's so much noise right now.
Oh, yeah. Amen.
People hear something, whether it's through email or whether it's through Twitter or whether it's just talking to someone, and everything is so fast, people getting hit with so much that they automatically put an understanding on it that's their understanding, not necessarily what the person meant. So there's something I call the ladder of inference, where if you would say something to me and I would say, Brandon, this is what I heard, is that what you meant? Instead of getting defensive and saying, oh, well, I'm not going to even deal with that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And it requires, it's not rocket science, but it requires intentionality.
It does.
And forcing yourself to slow down.
Exactly.
In a world that's wanting us to go faster.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
That's part of the challenge in that, but I love it. I think that's beautiful. Paulette, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Brandon. I really enjoyed it.
This was fantastic, and I think you got all of us a lot smarter on how we can navigate our careers. So if people want to learn more about you and the work you do, where can they go?
Sure. Well, of course, I'm on LinkedIn.
Of course.
Of course. Also, my email address is plcorbin@gmail.com. or you can just call me, 404-697-1890.
Cell phone, folks. She's bold.
I am.
She's serious.
I'm serious. I'm open.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for listening. This has been an awesome show. I know I learned a whole bunch. I hope you all did too. And continue with the fight against dysfunction. And you can follow us on Facebook.com/Brandon Smith WPT for Workplace Therapist, or Twitter @the WP Therapist. And of course, iTunes. Just look for The Brandon Smith Show. And until our next show, have an awesome week and an awesome life.